Hello everybody, welcome back to the Ultimate Master course for Excel Dashboard Analytics. We're now at chapter 3 of the Super Pro series. I hope that it's been a great time for you so far. Chapter 3 is going to be really fun. It's basically all about Excel formulas. We've put together a list of your must-know formulas that are super important that will transform you from a beginner to an intermediate to a super pro. Okay, so these are the 10, actually more than 10 formulas here, but it's a whole list of formulas that we think that are probably the most crucial formulas you need to know. Okay, so we're going to be covering from sum, count, math, logic formulas to even lookup reference formulas, concatenate, max, mean, and even nested formulas within formulas. So we are going to put them all together and even come up with more complicated examples. Alright, so I'm going to show you what all these formulas can do. Now let's quickly go into Excel. Alright, so we've got Excel open right now. Starting from the top, we have the sum, count, and average formula. Okay, so sum formula is really simple. Basically what it does is that it sums up all the numbers you have in the selected columns. Okay, so these selected columns here are cell D2 to D7. Just click equals sum, open bracket, select the whole set of data. There you go. The sum formula is really very simple. Then we go to the count. The count basically counts only numbers within the cell selected. So for instance, over here I counted cell A2 to A7, and A2 to 7 are all just text, right? We've got apples, oranges, pears, watermelons, grapes, and bananas. These are all text, so it will return a number of 0. Now count A, as long as the cell is not empty, it will count the cell. So in this case, see, if you use count A on A2 to A7, it fetches the output of 6. Okay, so what about the count if we try to count B2 to B7? If we change this to B2 to B7, then this will fetch 6, right? Because it's counting 6 cells here that have numeric values inside. Now, average is really simple. It just helps you to find the average of all the numbers within those cells selected. So just click equals average and then select the number of cells. You select cell B2 to B7 and you get the average of 19. Okay, you might be wondering, how do I show what is inside the cell? Just click on the cell, press F2 on your keyboard, and you can tell what formula is inside. Okay, so that's it for the first section, sum, count, and average. Now let's move over to the second section. We have just a slight twist to this sum, count, and average formulas. We've got the sum if, count if, and average if. It's basically just adding a logic to the formula. So you can see here, sum if B2 to C11, you're basically looking up B2 to C11, this entire set of data, and you are only finding the values from C2 to C11 if it has the word fruits inside from this entire array. Okay, which is basically the selection of data here. And we've got a few set of data that is showing as fruits. We've got this as well as this. Now, if you add all this together, you will get $10.40. So a quick way to double check is you just drag and drop, select it all here like that on your Excel screen, and you can see that for these cells that are selected, the sum is actually as well pointing 10.40. Okay, at the bottom right shows you the sum of the cells selected as well. Now, so that's it for sum if. Now moving on to count if. Count if is the same as well. You select the array of data and you only count the number of cells that have the word fruits inside. So in this case, we've selected the array of B2 to B11, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cells inside that have fruits. So therefore, the output you get from this count if formula is 6. Okay, we've got the average if as well. Now the average if works the same, very similar to this sum if or count if formula. select the array. It was B2 to C11, and then you just want to find the average of the price of only the meat. So you put in meat here, and you only find the average of this as well as this. Okay, you can see bottom, it shows you that as well. Average is 2.95. Okay, so that's it for the sum if, count if, and average if formulas. Let's move on to the if and if error formula. Now this is very useful. This if formula is so important. We use it so commonly in all kinds of data analysis. So over here you've got columns A, B, and C showing just a simple set of data. We've got columns A showing the products that you have, the items that you have. We've got some fruits, meats, as well as some other fruits, and you've got the price right beside that. Now you can actually just change the text inside here. You can change it to however you like. Alright, you can say below 3, and over here you can say above 3. There, and just copy and paste it down. You have the same effect. So that is basically just a text that shows up if the logic works or if the logic doesn't work. Okay, and the if error logic works very similar as well. So in this case, this other set of data, we have got sales numbers, units, as well as the average price. In this case, we've got, for the second row, we've got units showing up as 0. So the average price, we're unable to tabulate that because the units is showing up as 0. Therefore, it's showing up as an error in Excel. So the if error logic works that if we have an error, then it should return a value. So in this case, we use the if error formula and says that if there's an error, we would show insufficient inventory. So in this case, only cell C18 has an error and therefore is showing up as insufficient inventory. The rest are all showing as per the normal value. Now, moving on, we've got the AND and the OR function as well. The AND and the OR works as a logic function. So let me give you an example. You want to check if cost of apples and the cost of pears are both above $1. So you just put in the AND function, AND C2, which is the cost of your apples, if it's greater than 1, and pears, C3, if it's greater than 1. If both of these conditions are met, then it will show as true. Okay? If both are above $1, then it will show as true. If not, it's going to show as false. Alright, so in this case, both pears and apples are having a price of above $1, therefore this is showing as true. Now, what if we adjust the values of apple? So let's say we say apple is only 90 cents, then it shows as false. Likewise, if pears, maybe we give it 0.8, 80 cents, it shows as false. Now we need it to be both above $1, then it will show as true. Alright, now this is another example for pears and watermelons, both below $5. So cell C3, pears and watermelons, both below $5. Now in this case, pears and watermelons are both below $5. We've got pears only at $1.60, whereas watermelons are $2.50. So both are below $5. Therefore, it is showing up as true. Now, what if watermelons go up to $6? There, it shows as false. So you get the idea for the AND logic. Now the OR logic works very similar. The OR logic is if either the cost of apples or bananas are above $1. So basically, so long as one criteria is met, you get a true. Now, you only get a false if both criteria are not met. So in this case, we want to check if the cost of apples and the cost of bananas are above $1. So we've got apples above $1 and bananas are below $1. But you just need one criteria to go true. And in this case, apples is above $1, so this will be a true. Now, what if apple is below $1? 0.9. There, it shows up as a false. So just one criteria that will work. Okay, so in this case, check either cost of apples or pears are above $2. In this case, apples and pears are both below $2. Therefore, it shows up as a false. So AND and the OR logic can work up to as many criteria as you want. In this case, in this little example here, we're only showing two criteria, one on item 1 and one on item 2, but we can actually stretch that out to as many items as you want. So have fun, play around with that, and you can see that this is very useful formula. Okay, next we move on to the trim and the proper function. Now this is very useful, especially when you're dealing with data that is coming off from some system generated raw data. So I give you an example. Let's say we've got cell A2 and A3. The data that you have, it shows up a little bit warped. It shows that there are more spaces in between the words. So when you trim the cell, you remove the additional spaces. Now these additional spaces are not just within words, but also if they are before the words or if it's after the words. So if there are like spaces after the word spaces here, or if there are spaces before the word even. So all this space, unnecessary space, will actually get removed when we trim it. So let me just show you. If I just copy and paste the values here, you can see that there are no more additional space at the ends of this string of words here. Okay, so this trim result basically just make things very neat. It removes all these unnecessary spaces you have. And we also have the proper formula. Now the proper formula basically just takes away all the unnecessary capital letters you have in your text. Now an example here is cell A6. You've got this word old dictionary. Now old dictionary, you can see that the L and the D, the T and the O, A, these are all unnecessary capital letters. By using the proper function, we use proper onto the cell and it just fixes that completely. Okay, so these are all very useful formulas to really just tidy up your data set. Now moving on to VLOOKUP and the index match. Now the VLOOKUP and the index match formulas are so useful, especially if you're working in a data analytics role. You would deal with huge amount of data. The VLOOKUP function allows you to just screen through your data very quickly and find out what you need to find in your data set. Alright, so I give you a very simple example here. Let's say you want to search for the price of mutton. Alright, we've got a data set here with some fruits and meats. We've got apples, pears, watermelons, pork, fish. Some meats, we've got pork, fish, mutton, and as well as some beef. In order to find mutton is at this row here, row 7, cell C7, that's your price. In order to get 250, you use the VLOOKUP formula. So you look up cell E2, you look up mutton into this array, this entire selection here. Go to column 3, which is your first column, second column, and third column. That's your price. And use false. False will get you an accurate value of your selection. So there you go. Mutton showing up as $2.50. So what if you change the variable here? Let's say we want to find fish. How much is the price of fish? Fish. There, 380. Oh, by the way, I have it right below. Or I can try something like watermelons, and you get 250. Watermelon showing up as 250. Yeah, so it's really very simple. Now I just want to do a demonstration here how I do that. Okay, so let's say I start from scratch. Equals VLOOKUP, and then you select the value. In this case is cell E2 here. Press the comma. The table array is your data set basically. So select your data set. Now you notice earlier I had the dollar signs at the showing up here. Basically what it does is it fixes the selection of the data set, because if you copy and paste this formula down your spreadsheet, you will still reference this fixated data set. So just press F4 on your computer, F4, and you notice all these dollar signs appear. Now these dollar signs will mean that you have fixed this table array specific to this data set. Okay, press the comma button, and then the third column, right? So first column, second column, and third column, press 3, and then false. Okay, go. 250. Now assuming these cells are all empty, let's say these are all empty, Now if I just copy and paste this formula in, you can see that it will still reference and search this fixed selection here. So that was what we did earlier with the F4 on your keyboard. You fix the selection. Alright, so we got fish showing up as $3.80. We've got oranges showing up as 130. So that's the VLOOKUP. Now the VLOOKUP is very, very useful. Something very similar to the VLOOKUP is the index match function. Now index match function works almost identical to the VLOOKUP, just that the formulas are slightly different. It serves the same purpose too, I would say. Now over here you've got, let's say we want to screen mutton, fish and oranges as well. Okay, let me just show you an example here. So press F2, you see how the index match is constructed. First we do an index. Now the index is searching your entire data set, cell A1 to C11, your entire data set, and then you do a match. All right, you want to match cell E9 with your vertical column here first. So cell A1 as well to A11, fix that selection, 0, and then match your horizontal selection. In this case, you want to find price per 100 kilogram and show that selection as cell A1 to C1, 0. Okay, let me just quickly do an example here. So equals index array, which is this, fix that, press the F4 button, then you want to match lookup value. Now we're looking up cell E9 here, which is your variable cell, as well as the lookup array, which is this vertical column here. You want to fix that as well, 0, because we want to find the exact match, and then match again, which we want to pick off F8, which is your price per 100 kilograms, and then the lookup array, which is this selection here, fix it as well, and then 0. All right, exact match. There, 250. So once you got that out, you see that muttons is showing up as 250. Copy, paste it down. Whoops, this F8 should be absolute. That's how you troubleshoot. Yeah, okay, and then you just copy and paste it. You should see that there you got 380 for fish and oranges showing up as 130. Okay, so this should be exactly identical to your VLOOKUP results, and just have some practice on these two formulas. You can actually just stick to one and use that in all your references. It's really, really useful. Later on, I'm going to show you how you can use other formulas within another formula, and that will be even more powerful. Okay, now let's move on to the concatenate formula. Now the concatenate and the end formula, basically what it does is that it helps to string text together. So give you an example. Let's say we've got column A showing as the first name here, column B showing as the last name, and you've got, you know that these guys, some of them use Gmail, some of them use Hotmail. Now you wanna string them up and get their email address. Now this is something very common, right? Like you've got a whole list of first names and last names, and you want to just get a list of connected email address so that you can just send out a distribution list. So how do you do that? You can use both the concatenate and the AND logic to build that list. So first, the concatenate, you concatenate cell A2, and then given that their emails have this dot between their first and last name as well as the @ character, so you just string them together, cell A2 dot B2 @ cell C2, and that should string up and get you your email. Now, you only got the email for each names, right? You want to link them up all together so that you can have a distribution list like that. How do you do that? If you just break it down, we are just using the AND formula. Now in Outlook, we know that in order to string email addresses together, you need to have the semicolon as well as a space. So just by doing that, we are able to string this email address with the one before, and that will give us two email addresses linked together. and then we do the same, right? Let me just show you. Let's say all these are gone. I will just take this, copy, and paste it down there. So let me just zoom out. You can see that for cell E7, you would have a list of all their email addresses linked together, and this is really useful, whether at work or at your own, you're organizing some kind of event. This is very useful. Okay, so move on. We have the maximum and the min function. Now earlier we had this data set where we have the price of fruits as well as meat, and over here we want to find out what is the maximum price in this data selection here. Alright, so the maximum price, of course, we have $3.80, and that's fish, right? So just use the formula max and select the entire selection. You would get the maximum price, $3.80. Now for minimum, it works the same, very simple. Just put min, select the cells here, and it will get you the list smallest number here, and that is 80 cents. Okay, so this is a really straightforward formula. Now, moving on to the left, right, len or find formula. This is very useful when you want to alter the existing text of the original cells. So I give you an example. Let's say the original cell you have here is showing up as cell A1. Now the left formula basically allows you to cut out the certain number of characters from this text message. Okay, so over here, let's say you want to extract out the first 4 characters, which is D-I-N-O, Dino. Use the left cell A1 and then 4. So you are extracting out the first 4 characters. Now it works the same for the right, very simple. Just use right cell A1 and 4, and that gives you dinosaur. Yeah, dino for the left and saw for the right. Okay, what about len? Now len allows you to see how many characters are there in total in the text. So this len is really useful because we usually use this with the find formula. The find basically allows you to find out where exactly of the formula is the letter that you're finding. So in this case, let's say we want to find the character N. Okay, now we know that character N in this word dinosaur is at placement number 3, right? 1 is D, I is 2, and 3 is N. So if you put find the character N into cell A1, starting from the starting number is 1, which is D, it gets you number 3, right? Number 3 shows you where N is. So if you're trying to find out what are the characters left of N, you can, in this case, left of N, you should actually do find -1, right? -1 here, and that would be just DI. In this case, I didn't put the -1, so it just shows you the characters up till N. So it shows up as DIN. Yeah. Now, if you want to go right of N, you need to use the total number of characters minus where the placement of N is, and then you do the right of that. So in this case, you would get OSOR, which is using the len function. The len function will get you the number 8, which is the total number of characters here, minus where the placement of N is, which is using the find function, and that gets you 3 to get you the number 5. So this len A1 minus find N A1 1 will get you the number of 5. So using the right formula where we learned earlier, the 5 right characters of the word dinosaur is going to get you OSOR. Alright, so this is very useful as well, especially if you've got a string of text that you want to pull out only certain aspects of the total text message. So instead of dinosaur, you can actually have multiple words here, and you can use these functions to extract bits and pieces out of the string of text to only pull out the text that you are looking for. Okay, so this is also very useful. Now lastly, we want to move on to nested formulas. Nested formulas is a compilation of what we've learned previously. Now I'm going to show you an example of the VLOOKUP and the IF function, which Personally, I think it's one of the most useful formulas when you're dealing with data sets. Yeah, so let's say we've got this data set here, fruits and the meats, and you've got the price here, and you want to check whether we have a certain product in stock, and if it's inside our inventory, then how much is its price? Okay, so I give you an example. Let's say, we know that we have a set of fruits here, but we don't have things like mangoes. So let me just put the word mango inside here. We know that straight away it's not in stock. Okay, so it's really very smart, this formula. If we put in grapes, now we know grapes are inside this list. Grapes is over here and it shows up as 320. So how do you do that? You use the nested VLOOKUP inside the if function. So let me just show you. We use a VLOOKUP to check firstly if it is inside the inventory, and if it is inside the inventory, then we use the if function to say that if it is inside the inventory, it shows as in stock. Else we get an error. And if we do get an error, we use the if error formula to show that it is not in stock. Okay, so basically that's how it works. It's really very smart, this formula. Go ahead to practice. Once you learn how to use this, you can just have it at your fingertips whenever you're working on new data sets. This is something so useful. All right, same thing for the price. In this case, we're doing the function of if F3, if it is in stock, then we do the VLOOKUP. All right, if it's in stock, we do the VLOOKUP and we find column 3, which is the price. So if it's in stock, we want to find out how much it costs. That's basically what this formula is telling you. So you also have to get a sense of how to understand the formula, and the way to read the string of formulas is that it starts from the right. All right, so if F3, which is cell F3, if grapes are in stock, then we VLOOKUP what's column 3. So if grapes are in stock, then we want to find out what is showing up here in grapes. Okay, so it shows grapes would have a price of 320, and there we go, 320. Now let's try again. If we do bananas, there, it's in stock and it's showing as 80 cents. Alright, there's so many formulas out there in Excel, but we put together this list that is going to help you get to a very professional level in using Excel. If you learn and internalize all of these formulas here, you will become very fast, very efficient. You become a super pro in Excel. Okay, so I'll leave here in this chapter and I'll see you in the next one. See you.